Hey everyone, I'm going to be doing another Johnny Mathis video. I know I've been putting a lot of my commentary videos on his albums. I haven't been doing that in quite some time. Would like to get back to doing it, and so I'm going to be talking about his the Mercury albums. Not all of them, of course. I'm going to be talking about the 4 albums that he released in 1 year. In 1964. Now, you know that Johnny Mathis is my favorite crooner, and he is, right? I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to say, I don't want to say anything, like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Of course, they're incredible, amazing crooners. But Johnny Mathis has something special that I just absolutely love, and I absolutely just enjoy every single one of his albums. So that's what I'm going to be talking about here. It's incredible. 4 albums that he released in 1 year with Mercury Records. Now, he was with, of course, the amazing Columbia Records. His first record was released in 1956 called, Johnny. And he had producers such as Percy Faith and Glenn Ozer. And Glenn Ozer started following more with Johnny Mathis to produce some of these Mercury albums. And so in '63 he took a hiatus of Columbia Records. So from '63 to '67 he was with that label. And they, almost it will be 10 years ago when they released the set here, the complete global albums, which are technically the Mercury albums. And they sound really wonderful. Every time I, listen to it too on one of the CD, like I have a CD boombox over there, or my stereo system. I mean, it sounds incredible. I mean, you can hear all the bits of strings. You can hear all the bits of every breath that Mathis is taking within the song. He's just an incredible vocalist. I mean, his voice just carries through. And nothing to put down, of course, Frank Sinatra or any of those folks like Tony Bennett. They're incredible, but something about Johnny Mathis is special, and that's part of the reason why I just love him so much. Now, of course, later on, some of his albums later in the, maybe the tail end of the 70s until the 80s, he got a little cornball. He started making records with what was her name, Denise Williams and all that. And I'm not really too much of a fan of that era of his. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the 4 albums that he released in 1964. Now, his very first Mercury album came out in 1963, and it was a Christmas album. This was his second Christmas album called Sounds of Christmas. Now, Sounds of Christmas was actually a new song at the time, so he recorded this for this album. I don't know who actually produced the album. I believe it was arranged by Glenn Ozer, produced by Don Costa, which I know some of you folks may know that name. He's a famous producer. But all of these album covers are just very well painted. I believe it has the artist or the one that actually did the painting. No, it doesn't actually say on the liner notes in the booklet thing. But yeah, this was his first album on Mercury Records. And he says a little bit about that Christmas album, believe it or not. He said here that the reason I think I have always been so enamored with Christmas is because I come from a large family, and Christmas was the greatest excuse in the world to have a reunion for all of us. So that's pretty funny. Yep. But definitely good. That was his second Christmas album. So in the beginning of 1964, really technically his first, well, technically his second Mercury album was called "Tender Is the Night." Yeah, but I know a lot of people remember that song, or at least that's been covered a lot. And I just love that. It's just an incredible painting. I don't know. I wish I knew who actually did the. Okay, Okamoto is the name of the. I don't know if that's the name of the person who did the art cover, but that is very beautiful. And I love these back covers too, where you got shots of him in the studio. This album is a little bit pacey, but it's still an enjoyable album. It says here it was recorded in the fall of '63, and Don Costa producing the album, and was released January of '64. So right at the beginning of all the height of Beatlemania. Well, the beginning of when the Beatles came to the United States. The first track here is "Tender Is the Night." It's a beautiful song. It was actually from a film called "Tender Is the Night." P.F. Webster. "I Can't Give You Anything But Love, Baby" was from a Broadway play called Blackbirds of 1928. "April Love" from the film April Love. "A Ship Without a Sail." These actually come from musicals, so this was kind of mostly like themed around all musicals, but Johnny Mathis does do a lot of musical songs from any other. I mean, it doesn't have to be themed around a specific genre or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah, so definitely beautiful songs, and I love his cover of "Somewhere." The Leonard Bernstein song from West Side Story, beautiful. I love that song. So yeah, this was his first, this was his second album, but really his first kind of like non-holiday from Mercury Records. And he says a little bit about "Tender Is the Night." A little bit. He's got little sayings here. He says, "I did this album with Don Costa, a brilliant arranger. I've always been fond of Laura. I was taken with David Rakskin's soundtrack from the motion picture. I'm a great film fan, especially black and white movies of the 30s and 40s, and I have this particular version of Laura. To this day, whenever I do concerts with symphony orchestras, which I do a lot, this is the most popular song I do because of Don Costa's exquisite orchestrations." Well said. Okay, and then after that album, we get a little bit of a gap between January and this album comes out. It's called "The Wonderful World of Make Believe." There was actually me and my dad over the summer. We went over to Jersey, New Jersey. I always go there over the summer every year, and there's a little theme park that's called the Land of Make Believe. So I kind of like that. But yeah, anyways, the album was recorded. Doesn't say when it was recorded. But you got arrangers by Alan Ferguson. So I don't think... orchestration conducted by Jack Fierman. So it's not Glenn Ozer here. And produced by Johnny Mathis himself. It was released July of '64. And again, I love the back cover, the black and white pictures there. Pretty cool. That's him and Ferguson, the arranger of the album. So I feel like this one is mostly, kind of dreamy and kind of escaping of reality, kind of is what the theme of the album is. And some of these are really, it's not one of my favorite. I mean, if I had a certain Mercury album to place kind of low on the list, I feel like maybe this one might be kind of on the low scale there. But it's still, you still got the incredible vocals done by him, of course. Beyond the Sea, I love that. I do like that cover. It said it was recorded February '64, so it looks like most of this was done just a month after the Tender Is the Night album. Dream, 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 The Wonderful World of Make Believe by P.F. Webster, another one from his When You Wish Upon a Star. So, some of the, kind of like a kid's album or whatever, I'm assuming. And he says about the album, if I can find where he talks about that album. Or maybe he doesn't say anything about it. No, I don't see anything. Sweetheart Tree. Yeah, I don't see anything. I guess there was only certain albums that he only mentioned about. So after The Wonderful World of Make Believe, this actually comes out like 2 or 3 months after that, and this was technically his fourth. His third Mercury album, and it's called "This Is Love," and I like that. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool shot, and the back cover here. This Is Love came out September 18th of '64, but also within the same month as well. Now there has been conflicted release dates of the next one that comes after that, which is the Spanish album. Some say it came out September, some say it came out November, but this is Olé. So he had 2 albums released, I'm assuming on the same day. These 2 right here, Olé and This Is Love. This Is Love came first and Olé. And he actually says a little thing about This Is Love. He says here that I've always had some wonderful friends in the theater, and selecting songs from the latest theater productions that I had seen also seemed a natural thing for me to do. I've always loved ballads, and I was greatly influenced by the choice of hers. It just seemed right to me. I believe he was mentioning about, sorry if I didn't mention who the her is, Ella Fitzgerald. So, but yeah, not too bad of an album. It's not like maybe one of my, it's once again maybe kind of if I had to put it on the lower scale of like a ranking, or if I feel like this would be kind of a little bit below. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still kind of good, I guess. He does songs done by Paul Vance, who actually wrote this song "Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny." Yellow Dopakini, that song. I mean, not the greatest album, I think. Alan Ferguson again. And then we get to probably a very special album of his that I like, and it's called Olé. So same day as the This Is Love. He says some things about Olé. I could find it. Okay, the concept of this album was all mine. I had been hanging out with Miles Davis for a while, and he introduced me to a film called Black Orpheus. I fell in love with the music, and over the years I have recorded almost every aspect of its soundtrack. That was the genesis for the album itself. He also says that it might have been seen unusual to do a vocal version of whatever that, can't pronounce that name. It's a very, but this was a composition that was a singer. I often use for my vocal exercises, blah, blah, blah. It says, as a result, it may sound a bit labored. Yep, okay. The other selections were a little bit better, but I was just being a kid, enjoying it. What I did, that was it. So yeah, last one, Olé. And I really, this one has a little bit, you feel like you're placed in like the West, kind of, if you will, and it just sounds so, you feel like you're in like Mexico, or you feel like you're in San Juan, in one section. And I just absolutely, I mean, that is just probably one of my favorite album covers from of the Mercury albums. Yeah, Olé with the horses there and the circle. Yeah, so this is kind of like his Spanish or whatever, like, I guess, Southwestern album. But yeah, there you have it. all of the 4 albums that he released in '64. And I think if I had to choose one that's probably my favorite within those 4, and ending it with an Ole, he would have had at that time 5 albums released from that label. And I'm pretty sure I would have to either go with Tender as the Night or Ole. Definitely maybe these 2 would be my top pick out of the 4. So next time I'm going to be covering, which is nothing to really, I might kind of do like what I did with the last Mercury album that he did or whatever. The one from '67, where I just cover, some of the songs on the album and kind of, do kind of up behind the kind of behind of how the album or where the songs were recorded and the release dates and stuff. But I will be covering this album, Love Is Everything, when I get a chance to. So yeah, folks, let me know if you've heard those 4 albums that were released in 1 year by him. And this is definitely a great set if you're a fan just like me, Johnny Mathis. Now I know there has been a big box set of every one of his albums. I think it's just the Columbia albums. It's not including the Mercury albums. So I don't know, maybe one day I might, but I mean, like I said, I was never a fan of, I think my favorite period from his is from '56 to probably like the mid '70s, He had some albums with Tom Bell. I believe there was a CD out there that was, that has all the Tom Bell recordings and stuff, and yeah, it's a great period from his. So he definitely had a lot of good periods, and at this time too as well, which I've actually remember hearing a little bit back, that Columbia was still actually technically releasing compilations and other assortment of albums, I believe. So yeah, at the time when he was in Mercury, Columbia was still kind of putting out stuff from his. But yeah, that's all I can say. Great stuff. I absolutely love Johnny Mathis, my favorite crooner. Okay, folks, take care. Bye-bye.